Hi! Technically it is supposed to be my rest day because I just got done not getting a lot of sleep because Showgirl came out and then I had to do a video on it and then edit that 80-minute video, which took a while. I'm supposed to be resting today, but I oddly enough had energy to talk about something that I very rarely have energy to talk about, so I decided that I have to talk about it. One of the things that I've learned through the communities that I participate in is that there are a lot of things that I mention very briefly every once in a while because I think they're things that are only applicable to me, but then I realized that they apply to way more people than I realized. So one of the things that I want to talk about is the fact that I have pudendal neuralgia. I can't be too descriptive about that condition in detail. I want as many people as possible to be able to see this video because it's a really severely underdiagnosed condition, and it really does impact my life a tremendous amount. Basically, I recommend you Google it. I'll make sure the spelling is on screen. But basically the nerve that goes from my spine to my lower things, both front and back, yes, that is messed up, and that impacts my life in a lot of ways. The single biggest way is pain. Suffice to say that I am always imbued with biochemical courage, pretty much at all times, but also like especially when I'm talking in the place where the sky is blue. That tends to be a particularly embellished time for me. I have a tremendous amount of pain. I have a tremendous level of functional difficulties as well, and it really does have a severe impact on my life. It is very difficult for me to leave home because there's no safe way to be in a car without sitting down. And the way that nerve goes, I basically have to stay as ideally, I need to spend as many hours as flat as possible. I don't want to be an acute angle. I don't want to be a right angle. At bare minimum, I need to be an obtuse angle or ideally a line at all times. And that is just like one thing that I deal with. And I want to especially talk about the way that I got it because it's one of those things where I think a lot of people have shame about it. A lot of people don't want to talk about it, especially when it comes to discussing functional difficulties. Because especially if you're single or if you're not like certain that your partner is going to stay with you, a lot of people get really worried that they're never going to be able to find a partner. Me personally, I'm pretty comfortable talking about it. I've dealt with stuff, a lot of stuff, basically ever since I was a kid, so I'm just used to having to talk about things, and I have experience from the channel just being able to talk about delicate things in a manner that still allows people to see it, right? And whilst they can't be 100% certain why it happened to me, and whilst there's probably a couple of different things that came together that caused it for me, one of those things is almost definitely rough pursuits. I'll just say it like that. For a lot of my life, I consented to things that I really didn't necessarily want because I think on some level, even before I consciously realized I was gay, like I knew on some level that I wasn't like into the things, right? What I knew is that I am basically what lesbians like to call a pillow princess. Not like entirely a pillow princess, but I'm still like 80% pillow princess. And realistically, to get that experience like any level of gratified in a cishet relationship, I basically had to consent to relationship structures that involved, you know, 4 capital letters. I'll say it like that. And I'm not necessarily saying that like I didn't like any of it. It's just a matter of, in order to like bribe him into doing what I liked, I kind of had to make concessions on things that they liked. And it's also difficult because to some degree, these 4 capital letter things, they also are a way of like dealing with pain through endorphins, but I didn't necessarily realize that that method of pain management was causing other things, right? And it's a very underdiagnosed condition. I mean, like anything that impacts, but also it's one of those things where I think a lot of the people that have it, either they don't get out much, like because you're told you cannot sit for long periods of time. And like when I was diagnosed, they told me I could only sit down to eat. And for that period, for a period afterwards, I did have to, because the lemonade stand was out of order almost, and like I was going to physical therapy and things like that to get things working again. And not a lot of doctors know about this, especially if you're in like a rural area. It can be very difficult to get diagnosed, I understand. And even like the people that will say that you have it, a lot of times they don't have a lot of answers except things that you can do to prevent it from getting worse. Like one of the biggest things is trying to figure out how to modify my life. I've been trying to sit down in videos because that just seems to be what most people do, but I do wonder if standing up might be easier for me, just because of the fact that like I sat there for 3 hours the night Life of a Showgirl released, and yeah, there's a reason why a lot of times there's a big gap between my videos, because I spend a lot of time sitting down making them, and then I spend a lot of time sitting down editing them. And yeah, it's just not necessarily what this corpus is designed for. So I may be experimenting a little bit more with sitting and standing and all of that jazz, just because I need to see what actually is going to work for me. I lost my phone. Where's my phone? Okay, I hope my sound's been good, because I didn't really oh, shit, I almost fell. Erin, you're going to have to be paying a lot more attention if you're going to stand up while you do these videos. Get the cortisol down. But also, I don't know, it's pretty obvious that I've been editing my videos a lot less. I'm kind of just going to try and see if I can get away with that. I spend a lot of time editing videos, and I really would prefer, I think, to be the type of channel that gets videos out more often. I do want to one day get to the point where I can hire an editor, but I think for me, what I'm probably going to be focusing on is, I know the content of like what I say about media is valuable, and now I have like a small little community that I'm kind of forming, that I really appreciate, of people who understand and support and get things, and like they're not going to be upset. Like I know a lot of, I guess what I'm saying is, I know a lot of my existing fans watch my channel while they're crafting or something like that, so it doesn't need to be as visually stimulating as content that is made for younger folks. I watch a lot of content, and I see just how good everybody's editors are, but like everybody that I watch pretty much has like good editors, or they are really good editors. And like I can be a good editor, but that is a lot of time, and it also is a lot of stress on my back. Like it's just, when you're editing for long hours, inevitably you end up developing bad posture habits, or you end up spending time in postures that aren't the best for your body. And I just need to limit the time that I'm doing that. So I apologize if you're somebody who has ever like complimented me on my editing or said that you really like my editing. I think a lot of my editing was because I was insecure about myself and the content that I was making, because for a while, especially on YouTube, for many years, the large majority of the content and the people that I found were people that were making muse-based theories, and I had strayed away from muse-based content a while ago. It's not really that like I'm morally against it, or a lot of it is that I go back and forth, because there are a lot of signs that can point to multiple muses, but B, also just because she has been so clear about the fact that red herrings, and she will hide things from us, and she will show us things, so we just don't really have any way of knowing it. But also more so than that, like when I really started reading the lyrics of her music, I just started seeing so much more of what felt like Taylor, like definitively Taylor. I spent a lot of my Showgirl video saying that like, this isn't Taylor, right? This isn't 35-year-old Taylor, this isn't what we've come to expect out of her. The more I realized that a lot of what was underneath that was really valuable, like the most important nuggets of what makes her and her music and what she does so great, it's like herself, the way she distills herself into characters, the way she switches positions with her muses, the way sometimes she reports her side of the argument, sometimes she reports the muse's side of the argument, and I wonder if it's to fix things in her head, because spicy lures, no. But I don't know. I became so fascinated with this storyteller Taylor, this director Taylor, this puzzle master Taylor, mastermind Taylor. Like, that person is just so much more profoundly interesting than anybody else. And even if she has employees that do all of these things, leading that team and having it seem as flawless as it has, you know, she deserves the credit either way. Like, regardless if this is her employees or not, good employees languish under terrible leadership. Like, she's really demonstrated a lot of things recently. She's been flexing her planning ability, and she's been flexing her leadership and her, like, delegation and her ability to make a team and her ability to motivate people. It's so fascinating to see. And, like, when I started seeing those things, I just was no longer interested in talking about a lot of the Muse stuff. But I think for a while, a lot of people that were on YouTube were mostly doing a lot of Muse-based stuff. And there's nothing wrong. And I will be the first person to say that the Muses are just as important as the artist. Without the Muse, there is no art. Like, not the way that a lot of the mainline fans make all of the songs about Travis or whatever, like, not that type of Muse, but like the interplay between the artist and the Muse, but also the interplay between the artist, the Muse, and the fan. And in Taylor's case, I think she's artist, Muse, and fan of herself, which it just gives her such a phenomenal power. And I think if you're an artist, like, optimal to control that. I know I started off talking about all of my problems, and I don't necessarily know what I'm going to title this video, or if anybody is going to like this video, but this video is raw, unfiltered me, especially when I have less inhibitions than I usually do. Yeah, see if this video ever sees the light of day, because usually when I film stuff like this, I don't edit it because I get self-conscious. But I think it's kind of nice, because when I have, like, a video that I know is going to do pretty well, it gives me a little bit of freedom to do something that I'm like, nobody will like this. But yeah, a couple things. If you Googled Pudendal neuralgia, because I mentioned it in this, I really do, especially if you have the type of anatomy that I have, probably should look through the symptoms, make sure, because a lot more of us have been put through things that cause it than I think a lot of us realize. And I think so often a lot of things are just blown off as normal that aren't actually normal. And I think that's one of the most important reasons why I wanted to discuss this in a video, is just because I suffered a lot. I wouldn't put my worst enemy through this. No, but it's not like the end of the world. And I've been hesitant to talk about this because I'm like, I don't want to be the face of Pudendal neuralgia. Like, weird. But also, somebody's got to. Because that's how we get people talking about causes. I keep talking about the value of storytellers and telling stories and all of that jazz. The reason why it's so important is because when you have a story, you can make a cause, and when you have a cause, you can have commotion. And when you have commotion, that's the kind of thing that can make change. Like, I think very often, us as artists, we may feel like there's not a lot that we can do with our art except, like, you know, vent steam and maybe, like, motivate morale and stuff like that. But yeah, living authentically as yourself and encouraging others to do so as well, that's a really important matter as well. I think now I'm gonna rest, I say, and then I'm gonna edit this video.